From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome to the 301 Show, episode 9. I've been doing this for 9 weeks thus far. We've got some kind of weird and mind-boggling news out of the MLB and the Twins organization at our Target Field Talkers. We also have a couple of down-to-the-wire Timberwolves games from this past week, plus they have a busy upcoming week here. In the Nordic Report, we got a game that was closer than it should have been. That game should have been more of a blowout. We'll go over that, plus this upcoming game against the Chicago Bears. And then finally, we'll look at a couple of major things for the Minnesota Wild, some news, and how well Kirill Kaprizov is actually playing this season for the Minnesota Wild. So all of that plus more here next on the 301 Show. All right, so let's start with our Target Field Talkers here. So the big kind of confusing thing I want to bring up now is the awards have been coming out for the MLB thus far. Obviously, Chris Sale won the NL Cy Young. Tariq Skubal won the AL Cy Young. Those were both, Skubal was definitely way more of a sure thing than Sale was. But Sale was pretty well of a sure thing, and so there's not really any surprises on that front. Now, I do want to bring up the AL Manager of the Year award, and I don't really care about the winners or the higher ups on the vote getters. What I want to bring up is Rocco Baldelli, the Twins manager Rocco Baldelli, got a third place vote in AL Manager of the Year. I really don't think he deserved to get any types of vote after their absolute meltdown at the end of the year. And yes, I know there were people hurt, there were players hurt, but he just seemed to lose the locker room, the clubhouse at the end of the season. And to break this down, they had three different seasons in this season. The first season was the beginning of the year till April 19th. They went 6-12. So they started the season 6 games under 500. Then from April 20th to August 28th, so the big meat of the season, they went 66-45. They were 21 games above 500 in the middle 4 months of the year. They were fantastic. They were, clawing their way back to try to compete with Cleveland for the division. They were in the second wild card spot because they were, in my opinion, they were not going to catch Baltimore or New York, whichever one of those two lost the division. It ended up being Baltimore in that top wild card spot. But they were playing really well. And that was also with some of their better players hurt too. That Royce was hurt for a good segment of that amount of time. He came back and then got hurt again. Carlos Correa was hurt at the end of that. He, didn't go to the All-Star. Like, he was selected for the All-Star game, but didn't go. That season, the April 20th to August 28th, Rocco Baldelli deserved more than one third place vote. Like, he deserved to be a manager of the year. There's a couple things where it's like, okay, what are you doing? Like, why'd you make that move in that setting in that circumstance, but that's why I don't think he should have won it. But he deserved at least some more recognition than just one third place vote in that amount of time. From August 28th to the end of the year, they were 13 games under 500. They were 10-23. So in the take the season, take out the middle chunk there, and the beginning and the end of the regular season, they won 16 games, won 16, 6 before, 10 after, and they lost 35. They were 16-35, and then in their good months they were 66-45. That is a drastic difference between your peak and your valley. Like, I just don't think that Rocco deserved to have that type of voting for him for this award this season. He won the award. He won AL Manager of the Year his first year with the Twins, which I believe he deserved over Aaron Boone. Those are the two front runners that year in 2019. That was the Bomba Squad year for the Twins. I thought that Rocco Baldelli deserved the award that year. I don't think he deserved it this year. He did not do enough for even a third place vote this year. So that is where I am just absolutely head scratching at this point. I don't understand how he got a vote, but he did. So I guess congratulations to him. But I'd rather see you make the playoffs. And like, if they had taken out that last half of the year and had the bad start to the year but then clawed their way back, and even if they played 500 ball instead of 13 games under 500 at 10-23, if they were 18-18 in those games, if they the 33 games in that 33 game stretch, so it wouldn't be 18-18, but if they were 500 in those 33 games, I think he deserves more of a consideration for AL Manager of the Year. But just not with how that actually ended. I don't think he does. All right, so for predictions for Target Field Talkers, another week where nothing has happened in the offseason, where my couple of offseason predictions are still on the board. So nothing is off the board yet for Target Field Talkers. My first prediction for this episode of the Target Field Talkers is that Pablo Lopez will be one of the 3 finalists for the 2025 Cy Young Award. I think he is going to have a bounce back year, and I think he will. This is somewhat similar to my, if that one is right, I have one earlier that I made in an earlier episode where I think I said Pablo or Bailey Ober will receive votes for the 2025 Cy Young. So if this prediction comes true, that prediction will also come true. So this official prediction for this episode is Pablo Lopez will be a finalist for the 2025 Cy Young Award. Then my second prediction is that Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis will combine for less than 10 games for the St. Paul Saints in the 2025 season. So I am banking on both of them not really getting hurt, and then Brooks Lee playing well enough all year to stay up with the Minnesota Twins. So Royce Lewis and Brooks Lee will combine for less than 10 games with the St. Paul Saints this upcoming season. And the final prediction, I do have some data on to back this one up. I said the Twins will hit 200 plus home runs in 2025. This one is a bit of a stretch on for this prediction, as they hit 183 home runs in the 2024 season. The average team home run count was 182. So that is significantly up from the league average and what the Twins did this past season. So that one is a long shot, but I do think it will come true. So those are my 3 predictions and what I have for Target Field Talkers this week. All right, we're moving now over to the Wolves' Den, and they had 2 games this last week that were pretty exciting finishes for the Timberwolves, as last Friday they were in Sacramento, and they had a 19-point lead in late in the third quarter, and between the third and fourth quarter they blew it. They blew the lead in the third quarter, and they tied. The Sacramento Kings were able to tie the game, and they um, ended up pushing it to overtime, where the Timberwolves won by 4 points in overtime. So they were able to get get a win on the road in kind of unconventional fashion. That one again should have been probably more of a blowout, but it seemed like they kind of let up a little bit in the late in that game. I don't know if it was just they were tired or something, but that you can't really have that happen in the playoffs and have that be a valid excuse. Everybody's tired in the playoffs. So we will see if that becomes a trend where they are just not as good on the West Coast. But they still came away with the win. Ant, that game, put up 36 points. It was 4 points from a 40-point game. He was the highest scorer in that game. But the game that was probably more exciting for Timberwolves fans and just NBA fans in general. I do have a bone to pick with that game. That game happened on Sunday at home against the Phoenix Suns. Um, Julius Randle put up 35 points. He was the leader of that game. The Timberwolves put up 39 three-point attempts in that game. So I uh, think we can get to this. We'll get to this in just a second here, but they do play Boston this upcoming week. Boston also chucks up a lot of threes, and I think that game's going to be just a lot of fun to watch. I should say a lot of fun to watch if those threes are landing and actually going in. Hopefully they are, and it's just like a back and forth um the game of just shots from beyond the arc. But again, the reason this game was so surreal and so fun to watch was Julius Randle, on top of the 35 points he put up, he had a 3-point game-winning buzzer beater to knock off the Suns by 3 points, and they ended up winning by 3, and they went 2-0 this week. So that was fantastic. If we look ahead here, they play 4 games. They go on a 2-game road trip. They play the Toronto Raptors on tonight as I'm recording this. If you're listening to this on the day it gets released, that is tonight, the Thursday the 21st at the Toronto Raptors. Then they play on Sunday. They play in Boston. That was the game I was talking about, where they could just be 2,000 three-pointers shot in that game. And then they come home on Tuesday and play a back-to-back. They play Houston on Tuesday the 26th. And the day before Thanksgiving, which happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I don't think I'll either put out the episode early next week or there might not be one, but just know that yeah, there might not be an episode next week. There will not be one on Thursday. For sure. So go spend time with your family on actual American Thanksgiving here. So Wednesday they play at home again against Sacramento, and just this time it's in Minnesota. So those are the 4 games: at Toronto, at Boston, home against Houston, home against Sacramento. The team rankings we get here, they have played 14 games so far. They are 8-6 in those 14 games. So they're in a little bit of a roll here after a stutter last week. They still third in their division, but they have climbed up to sixth in the Western Conference, so they would not be in the play-in tournament. They would just be in the actual playoffs. Um, so far this year, they are sitting at 113.9 points for per game, which is 15th in the NBA. Their field goal percentage, the percentage of shots they are making, is tied for seventh at 47.6%, so just under 50%. Um, 3-point percentage is fourth in the entire NBA at 38.2, so they're chucking them up and making them um, a lot more than the rest of the league, or most of the league. Um, and field goal percentage, or free throw percentage, they are making it 78.7% of the time, which is 11th in the NBA. So they're doing a pretty good job there of getting to the line and actually making them when they do get to the line. Rebounds per game, they're sitting at 40.6, which is 26th in the entire NBA. So that is not great. They are not coming down with the ball as much as the other teams in the NBA. Blocks per game, they are sitting at 4.6, which, blocks per game does definitely help, but um, I think that is not fully something they need to be super, super. Like, I'd be more worried if, say, the opponents were shooting a higher percentage. Um, so I'd be if they were shooting at a higher percentage and the Wolves weren't getting blocks, then I'd be more worried. Uh, then the turnover differential. This has been trending south since the beginning of the year. They are sitting at 0.7 turnover, plus 0.7 turnovers per game. So they're averaging 0.7 more turnovers per game, or just about one turnover a game more than their opponents per game. And that is 13th in the NBA. And they did had those stats at the beginning of the year. So recently they've been, turning the ball over more than their opponents, because we've seen a steady decline on that turnover differential. Points against per game is sitting at 111.1, which is 10th in the NBA. So that is pretty good there. They're just not letting them. They're also, opponents are sitting at 47.3 field goal percentage. That is tied for 21st. So the percentage isn't that great, but they're also not putting up that many or not as many shots, because with that percentage, if there was a league average shot attempts, that points against per game would be a lot higher than it is. Um, from three, so they are opponents are shooting 35% from the 3-point arc, and that is 11th in the entire NBA. So again, that's a pretty good figure there, that they're, you know, forcing them to shoot, drive to the net and shoot 2-pointers, and that's another reason why that points against per game is lower, is that they're forcing them to take the shots that aren't just worth as much. So then rebounds against per game, so other teams, they're sitting at 42 rebounds against per game, which is sixth lowest in the NBA. So that, again, looks pretty good, that they're not allowing as many rebounds to go to the other team compared to the NBA. And then blocks against per game, so they are getting blocked 5 times a game, and that is 15th. So that is just exactly league average. Now, one thing I do want to go back to, I forgot to mention it before, um, in that Sacramento game again on Friday, the game in Sacramento against the Kings, Ant flipped off a fan, and he was fined 35 grand for that gesture. I do want to say, a few years ago, Hartman flipped off a player right in front of the ref, Ryan Hartman of the Minnesota Wild, and he was fined, I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000. So that is the difference in leagues. But yeah, I don't really have any thoughts about that, just that he was fined $35,000 for flipping a fan off. Um, for the Wolves Den predictions this week, we did have a few come off the board, and the um, we had two come off the board. I said Ant will drop 40 plus against the Kings. Obviously, he dropped 36, like I mentioned. So that one is incorrect. And I said the Wolves would go exactly 1-1. I thought they were going to lose to the Suns, but that one ended up being correct. So I am glad I was wrong on that one. Um, so that brings my Wolves Den predictions to a grand total of 2-12, 2 for 12, which is 17%. Now, I did say in my first ever episode of the 301 show, I did say the NBA and basketball was my least knowledgeable sport. So that is no surprise in seeing that number so low. Um, so then uh, I've got three predictions here for this week. First prediction is that the Wolves will beat the Celtics this upcoming week when they play in Boston. Second prediction is that Ant will drop. I'm going to go back to the well here. Ant will drop 40 points in a game one of the next four games in the next week. Then the last one is Naz Reid will have a 30 plus point game in the next week as well. So somehow be fantastic if all those three things happened in the same game. But I'm not holding my breath for that. That part of it is off the record. I'm not predicting that it will all happen in the same game. Just that those three things will happen within this next week. All right, now let's move on to the Nordic Report. The Vikings played in Nashville, which looked like Minnesota Southeast. There were a ton of purple jerseys in those stands on Sunday. There was the skull chant going on, and reportedly, this is just a report, but apparently the DJ, the guy that's in charge of the music at Nissan Stadium, apparently was playing the music louder when the Vikings fans were trying to do the skull chant in Nissan Stadium, trying to drown them out a little bit. So that is absolutely hilarious to me that the Vikings fans showed up and were that loud. Um, that the skull chants must have worked because the Vikings won 23-13. Although I will say that game should have been 30-6 because the 98-yard touchdown pass that the Titans had, it seemed like Brian Flores was playing way too aggressively on Will Levis. Will Levis, might not be the greatest NFL quarterback, but he is still a quarterback in the NFL and can do quarterback in the NFL things. And he just launched one up. Brian Flores looked like he wanted 2 points out of that drive for the Titans. He wanted the Vikings to, get a safety or fumble it and recover it in the end zone for a touchdown. But it was not, that did go for a 98-yard touchdown. Then Jalen Naylor had like a 43-yard pass that hit him in the chest and he dropped it, and that would have been a touchdown too. So the Vikings got kind of screwed on just two plays. If you change the outcome of two plays, that game is 30-6. And this isn't like a Gophers against Michigan where it's like if they call that onside correctly, that's a touchdown. No, it's not guaranteed that is a touchdown. If you change the outcomes of those two plays specifically, that would have made the game 30-6. I did think the defense outside of that one play, the 98-yard touchdown by, was it I forget who it was. Ridley maybe was the one that caught that. It was Will Levis, the 98-yard pass from Will Levis, and I thought the defense played absolutely amazing. Um, Outside of that one play, they were not letting the Titans get anywhere on the field. And I think I saw somewhere that said Will Levis had 295 yards passing, and 98 of them came on that one play. So that would have been a 297 yard or 197 yard game without that play, and that's fantastic out of that defense. Um, the other thing worries me a little bit is the run game for the Vikings did not look very good. But if you looked at Aaron Jones, he clearly is playing hurt. Like that hip injury he suffered a couple games ago. Was it Jack? It was either the Jacksonville game or the game before that. Uh, One of those two games, he just did not look that, or he looked like he got hurt in that game and just hasn't fully recovered from that. And you may have wondered what was wrong with him, but you know, or that's one of the games where you're not wondering what was wrong with him because he looked so hurt. If we look ahead, the Vikings travel to Chicago this upcoming week. The Vikings are currently 8-2. They are 4-1 on the road. So they have the exact same record on the road as they do at home, 4-1, both home and away. Um, and hopefully after this week, they have a half a game better record on the road than they do at home. They're traveling to Chicago to play the Bears. The Bears are 4-6. They're also 4-2 at home, so they have not won on the road yet, but they are also on a 4-game losing streak currently. Um, the Vikings' all-time record against the Bears is 66, 52, and 7. So they are well above 500 against the Chicago, 14 games above 500 against the Chicago Bears. Um, and then they are in the last 20 games, so the games over the last 10 years, the Vikings are 12-8, so they are 4 games above 500 against the Bears in the last 10. So that looks fantastic. It all looks up for the Vikings, but I will say again, the Bears are an NFL team. They are the players at least are going to be looking to play for some pride here. The Bears players are, and I don't know if the coaching staff is with Eberflus still as the head coach. I don't know why he is. I think you can ask Bears fans, and they still don't, like, not even they know why he is still employed by the Bears. Like, I think they all want to him to be gone too. Now, I will say with this upcoming game, I think this could very well be a trap game for the Vikings, as they are um, coming back home next week after the Chicago game. They're coming home. They're playing their third of a 3-game road trip. The Bears are not very good this year, and so I think they could just be looking like I just want to be home. They do come home in between away games, but I could see them being, I want to be home for more than just a couple days, and just wanting, yeah, to be home with their families. So I really hope that KOC and that coaching staff for the Vikings are making sure they're paying attention to the Bears. I also think the Bears could be playing with a bit of a chip on their. I think it's either going to be as a result of the Packers game, which they lost on a blocked field goal by the Packers. They are either going to be playing with a chip on their shoulders, like because they're mad about the how that game ended last week, or they're just going to go full on depression. We lost to the Packers again. I think I saw somewhere too they haven't beaten the Packers since 2018, the year they won the NFC North, and that ended with the double doink. Um, which I was at that last game of the year, Vikings hosting the Bears, and they lost. That was my first game I took in at US Bank Stadium, and we got smoked. So we can now that team that year was a lot better than this team is now. Or I should say, playing a lot better. I think this team now might be better on paper, but that team was playing a lot better that year than this team is now. So do not overlook these Chicago Bears. Um, as I said, let's do the team rankings now. As I said, they are 8-2 on the year. They are still second in the NFC North behind the Detroit Lions, and they have the fifth seed in the NFC. So they are I think, tied with the Eagles for the third best record or second best record in the NFC. Both the Eagles and the Vikings are at 8-2, but um, because of the other team, the team that is ahead of both of us is in our division, we get the 5 seed. And if I remember correctly, too, we would be playing the Atlanta Falcons in the first round if the season were to end today. And that would mean a rematch with Kirk Cousins, as we are playing um, the Falcons either next week or the week after that. We have the Cardinals and Falcons are our next 2 games. I just can't remember which one comes first, but um, that would be the playoff matchup if the season were to end today. Yards per game for the Vikings, they're sitting at 341, which is 15th in the NFL. Points per game, they are 24.4 points per game. That's what they are scoring. Now, again, part of that is defense scoring too, but points per game for the Vikings is 10th in the entire NFL. On third down, the Vikings are sitting at 39.7%, which is tied for 12th in the entire NFL. They've converted 46 out of 116 times. On fourth down, they are still they've converted 4 times out of 6 opportunities, which is still a 2/3, 66.7%. That is tied for 6th in the entire NFL. Defensively, they are a top 5, arguably top 5, for sure a top 10 defense. They have gotten their yards per game way down. They are at 309.2, which is 10th in the entire NFL. I think at one point they were like, I think, the 24th in the league for yards per game, and obviously on defense you want your number to be lower, so they were giving up like the 8th most yards per game, but also like a top 3 points against per game team. So they were just giving up a ton of yards. Now, playing the last couple teams that they have played, they're not that great, definitely helps that case. In points per game, they are still they're letting up 17 points per game, which is 4th fewest in the NFL. On third down, teams have converted 44 out of 128 times. That is good for 34.4%, which is 7th lowest in the NFL. On fourth down, teams have gone for it 19 times on fourth down against the Vikings. They have converted 6 times. That is a conversion rate of 31.6, which is number 1 in the NFL. They have the best defense on fourth down in the NFL percentage-wise. Special teams, field goals, they're the combination of John Parker Romo and Will Reichert are 19 for 21 this year. That is 90.5%. That is 10th in the entire NFL. The long is still Will Reichert's 58-yarder against the Houston Texans, which are tied for 8th in the National Football League. And they missed their first, John Parker Romo missed the first PAT attempt of the year. So they are 25 for 26 on PAT attempts. That is 96.2%. Uh, as for predictions this week, we had three come off the board. A pretty good week here for the Nordic Report. Had three come off the board. Let's start with, I said Sam Darnold would throw a 40-plus yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson. He almost had a 40-plus yarder in the game just to Jalen Naylor. If Jalen Naylor didn't drop that one, he would have had a 40-plus yarder. Obviously, my prediction is incorrect either way. Justin Jefferson had no touchdowns this last game. So that was my one incorrect prediction that came off the board. Then I also said John Parker Romo will not miss a field goal attempt against the Titans, which he did not. So that one is also correct. And I also said the Vikings would just beat the Titans. I did not put a by a certain amount of points. I just said that the Vikings would win. So that one is also correct. So if we look at the stat tracker here, I've correctly predicted 5 Nordic Report predictions out of a possible 14 that have come off the board thus far. And that is a pretty good 36%. So I'm over predicting over 2 out of 3 correct. So, or 1 out of 3 correct. So that's better than in my weekly predictions, I'm getting more. There is a better chance that I predict at least one of these correct. So my first prediction today is that Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson will each score a touchdown against the Bears. So if one of them gets it, the other one doesn't, this is incorrect. Obviously, if neither one of them score a touchdown, this is incorrect. If this is only correct if they both score a touchdown, which I believe they will. I am also going to double down on JPR, or I guess he just wants to go by PR now. So Parker Romo. I will say that he will make all of his field goals against the Bears. I'm going back to that well. He's going to make all of his field goals attempts again this week. And then Caleb Williams is going to get sacked 5 or more times, and or he gets intercepted 2+ times. So if one or both of those things happens, this correction is predict. He will either get sacked 5+ times and or get intercepted 2+ times by Brian Flores's brick wall defense. All right, now let's move over to the Rinkside Rundown. It'll be our final segment here today for this episode, the 9th one. Last Thursday, when I was after I recorded this episode, my brother, parents, and I went to the X to take in the game against the Montreal Canadiens. It was Brock Faber's 100th career game. The Wild won 3-0. Gus Bus saved all 19 shots he faced. Boldy, Rossi, and Kirill all scored goals. Kirill's was an empty netter. Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Zuccarello both left the game in the first period, and I saw Michael Russo tweeted that they used 13 different forward-lined combinations after those two went down. So that doesn't include the line combinations with those guys in it. It was 13 different forward line combinations after they got hurt, which is fantastic. A fantastic look for the Wild that they have so many players that can, mix and match with each other. Now, you obviously don't want to be doing that every single game. You want to give these guys some sort of stability here. And if you are changing your lineup, that probably, mid-game like that, it probably is a bad thing either way, but it either means you are down guys that got hurt like they were on Thursday, or your team just isn't playing that well. And you're looking for some sort of different combination to get everyone going. Then on Saturday, a couple days later, the Dallas Stars came to town The Wild seemed to the last couple of years not play that well against the Dallas Stars. They lost 2-1. Kirill scored the only goal for the Wild with 5:50 left in the third period. Mason Marchment scored both goals for the Dallas Stars on Saturday. Gus Bus again stood on his head in that game. He stopped 38 out of 40 shots. Um, he faced 40 in that game against the Stars, and he was stellar. He was fantastic in that game. Then on Tuesday, the Wild traveled to St. Louis to play the Blues. Now, remember, at the beginning of the year, that super long road trip to start the year, right at the beginning of it, it was either their first or second game of that road trip, I believe. That they went to St. Louis, and that was the game that Gustafsson scored the goalie goal on the empty net. So they've had some um, heroics there against the Blues already this year, and this game was no different as the Wild scored 4 goals to beat the Blues 4-2. Kirill got 2 of them. One of them was the empty netter. And then Brodin scored a goal too, and that one was from the point. That ended up being the game-winning goal. Again, Gustafsson ended up stopping 22 out of 24 shots he faced and just played fantastic. He has been playing fantastically so far. So I do want to get, since we are talking about Gustafsson right now, I do want to get into his rankings really quick about how he ranks in the NHL so far. And um, before I get, there's some big news here from this past week. But I do want to just talk about Gus really quick. He is 9-3-2 on the year. He has a save percentage of 0.926%, which is tied for second in the NHL. And then his goals against average is 2.07, which is number 1 in the NHL. Now, on the Bardown Beauties podcast, I will tag them in the description down below too. They had Marc-Andre Fleury on, and they asked him about starting less games this season. He has only started 4 games this year, and Gustafsson has not needed any relief this year. So those 4 games he started are the only 4 games he has played this season. And he was quoted as saying, again, credit to this quote goes to the Bardown Beauties. He was credited as to saying that he said, obviously I love playing. It's much more fun than sitting on the bench, a lot more fun. But the team is winning and Gus is playing great. There's only one goalie in net, right? Just got to stay good for the guys and keep practicing hard. Keep them smiling if I can. All that matters is the team winning, so that it's all good. I think that one quote shows you the type of player and the type of human being Marc-Andre Fleury is. And they have an absolutely fantastic backup goaltender here in Minnesota. As Kurt Russell, as Herb Brooks said in Miracle, that's the attitude I want on and off the ice. He's just, Marc-Andre Fleury is willing to do everything he can to make this team better, no matter what his role is on the team. If he is, practicing, he wants to play his best, one, to keep himself sharp, but then also to make sure his teammates are going up against tough competition in practice to make sure they're actually ready for the game as well. So again, the big news here out of the Rinkside Report and out of St. Paul is that at that game I was at against Montreal on last Thursday, Matt Zuccarello was hit in the groin with the puck, and initial reports have him out 3 to 4 weeks, but he did undergo surgery, and He had lower body surgery, and I don't think the team has announced what exactly that lower body surgery was. But if he was hitting the groin, you do really, hope and pray that he is okay in that area. But he will be out for a couple weeks. Joel Eriksson-Ek also went off the game, um, or went out, like left with an injury, but he was back in St. Louis in the game against St. Louis in St. Louis. Now, I do, before we get into the team rankings, I just want to take a look at Kirill Kaprizov real quick right here. I think he should be, as of right now, if the season were to end today, he would have my vote for the Hart Trophy for the NHL MVP award. In 18 games played this season, he has 13 goals, 20 assists for 33 points, and 2 game-winning goals. Over an 82-game season, that is projected to be 59 goals, 91 assists for 150 points, and 9 game-winning goals. So he is absolutely on fire to start this season. It when he plays well, the team plays well, and that is even more evident by in their wins. They have won 12 games. In those wins, he has 11 goals, 15 assists for 26 points. So he is almost goal per game in the wins. So when he scores a goal, they have a way better chance of winning. In their losses, they have lost 6 games, 3 in regulation, 3 in overtime or a shootout. He has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. So he is still over point per game, but he has way less goals than the games that they win. And like his goals per game are way down when they lose versus they win. It's way higher when they win. So for the Wild to be successful, you got to keep him clipping along. Maybe not at this pace, but at a very high level here, which I fully am. I'm all on board. I think he will be able to do that. I think he is fully capable of doing that. Team rankings, their record is 12-3-3. They are 27 points. That is second in the Central Division. It is also second in the Western Conference. Only the Winnipeg Jets are ahead of them. Their goals for per game so far this year, they're tied for 9th in the NHL with 3.39. Goals against per game, they're at 2.33, which is tied for first in the NHL. So they are now scoring over a full goal, 1.06 more goals per game than they are letting up. Their power play, they're sitting at 20%, 20% even. That is tied for 13th in the NHL. Their penalty kill is sitting at 76.2%, which is up. They're 24th in the NHL, which is still not fantastic, but it's definitely way better than it was a couple weeks ago. I think it was sitting at 68% or something like that. So obviously you'd like to see that above the 80% if you want to be a true Stanley Cup contender. Face-off percentage, 48.1%, just 25th. I think to be a true Stanley Cup contender. I don't know what the actual numbers look like for the last 5 to 10 Stanley Cup winners. I probably should have looked at that. But I think you need to be above 50% on the face-off dot, because that just means you're controlling the puck more. Shots per game, they are shooting 28.4 shots every game. That is 19th in the NHL. They are allowing 28.3 shots against per game, which is tied for 11th fewest in the NHL. So they are really making their shots count when they do get them. So that is fantastic. We went over the Gus Bus rankings. He is a top 2 goaltender so far this year. Let's look ahead here. Tonight of the 21st, at 8 p.m., they play the Edmonton Oilers. On Saturday, the 23rd, they play at the Calgary Flames. So they're doing a Battle of Alberta swing here. On Monday, they are at home against the Winnipeg Jets. Hopefully, we can hand the Winnipeg Jets their third loss of the year. Hopefully it'll be more than their third loss. Hopefully they'll have lost some games before we play them on Monday. And then Wednesday they play at the Buffalo Sabres. There might be an episode out that day. Um, so we will see about that. Then one final thing here. Greg Greg Wyshynski, is an NHL analyst over at ESPN. Before this season, he made a bold prediction for every NHL team's season. Um, and now, what, a month and a half into the year, he went back and gave his confidence rating on a scale of 1 to 10, for how confident he is on certain things happening. Um, and I just want to tell you guys what he had for the Wild, which is his prediction was that Jesper Wallstedt will take over as the starting goaltender for Philip Gustafsson, which, to be fair to him, I thought that too. I thought after last season, Gustafsson was not going to be our goalie. Um, and I think from what I've heard, they tried to ship him this offseason, and he looks pissed off about it. So Wyshynski's ranking for that confidence rating for that prediction is sitting at a 1. So he has zero faith that is actually going to happen, which I have to say I completely agree with him. I should have been. That is a poor confidence rating in that prediction, which is also a prediction I had for myself too. All right, so now we have predictions here. I had 2 come off the board from this last week for the Rinkside Report. First one, I said Marco Rossi and or Brock Faber will be a star of the game against Montreal. I thought both of them were going to be. And because I thought, both of them were going to be because they both scored. But obviously not both of them scored. Rossi scored and Boldy scored. And I thought that, I actually thought it was going to be Rossi, Faber, and Boldy, but it was not Rossi. It was Boldy, Faber, and Gus Bus, which obviously if the goalie gets a shutout, you got to give it to the goalie. So, but that is still a correct prediction for me. And then I also said the Wild will beat the Stars, which is incorrect. So that brings my total to 5 correct out of a total of 11 predictions, which is 45% on the year. And then if we look at the Rinkside Rundown for this week, I said that the Wild will get at least 6 points in their next 4 games. And by the way, if I say for this week, if I said for any of these before next week's episode, I mean that when it was regularly supposed to be scheduled. So between now and next Thursday. I just want to put that on the board. I can't remember exactly what I said, but this is for Thursday to Thursday. So in the next week, the Wild will get at least 6 out of a possible 8 points. I also said in the same time frame, Ryan Hartman would score 2 or more goals. And then for a season-long one, I do want to put a season-long one on here. I said that Philip Gustafsson will finish in the top 3 in Vezina Trophy voting for the best goaltender in the NHL. All right, so now I do want to go over the totals for my predictions for all 4 segments, 3 that have had predictions come off the board. Again, the Target Field Talkers have not. So this is just the Rinkside Rundown, the Wolves Den, and the Nordic Report. I have 12 correct predictions out of 37 that have come off the board, and that is sitting at 32%. All right, so that'll do it for this week's episode of the 301 show. I do thank you for joining us. I do ask you to, put any suggestions you have in the comment sections below of stuff you may want to hear, maybe new segment ideas if you have any ideas for that. And then give me any thoughts you have on any of my takes from today or maybe in the past too. Just yeah, let me know any thoughts you guys may have. Again, thank you for joining us today. Hope you join us again soon. See you next time.